Some say he's a technical whiz. Some say he was born in Cornwall. While some say he's on a journey. It's The Journey, and here's your host, David Hackett.
Our guest on a journey is always love figuring out how things work. They are scientists to their core. They also crave to dig into the mysteries of life and understand why things are the way they are. After working in the pharmaceutical industry for 15 years, our guest dropped out of corporate America to homeschool her 4 children. She has always had a side business in her life and shares with others how to manage a well-lived life of children, family, friends, and clients, while not suffering from burnout. Her 12 books, which we will talk about no doubt, 91 online courses, 4 podcast programs, and radio show all express their desire to share her systems and routines with others. So, without further ado, we welcome Ginny to the journey.
Thank you so much for having me with you today, David. I'm looking forward to this adventure we go on together.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Now, I haven't got any notes. I've only got what was sent to me by you, and also that's old because you got in contact with me a couple months ago. But everyone has a journey. Everyone's journey begins somewhere. My joke is that the earliest memory is that, yes, we was born. That's the earliest memory. But what started your life in the journey where you are now?
I think it was a desire to understand why the world is the way it is. I've always kind of been a scientist. I always asked too many questions. I always got in trouble because I was always asking why. Why do we do it this way? Why? I was a very inquisitive child. But that didn't play well with my particular family. And so I learned to internalize the questions, but they were still very present. And one of the things that I wanted to know was, why did bad things happen to good people? And so I started reading books on that topic, but I really wanted a two-way conversation with God. I was raised as a Catholic, so I was Roman Catholic. And so I wanted a conversation. I thought, we studied saints all the time in church, and they had conversations with God. So I was bound and determined that by heavens, I was going to have a conversation with this man, this God. And that set me on a 25-year journey of learning how to meditate, Hindu gurus. I mean, I actually went outside Christianity, anyone who was a mystic, anyone who had any kind of knowledge or wisdom that they could give me on how to communicate directly with source. And that is what was the passion, the drive, the fire in everything that I did to get where I am today.
And the ultimate question always has been is, why is this? Why is that? It's like, I will reference how I was as a child. I was always, where my grandparents used to live, there was a nuclear power plant nearby, which sounds dangerous, and fair enough, nuclear power is dangerous, but they did guided tours, and I went round on that guided tour one summer vacation, and I was like, why is it like this? And when I was given a tour, the one for their money, because I was like, wow, quantum physics is like this, and it's like, how do you know so much? It's like, because I read about it. And they said, we read about it. I said, yeah, but you haven't read about it like I have. And I was only 7, 8 years old, and I was reading of things about quantum physics, about how the nuclear reaction will occur, and why is it that nuclear is like this? Like, oh. But the fact is, your why is a good why, because there is a why in every single statement you do, not just you, everyone does have a why every day. Like, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do that? So
And
my
to me, the question why is actually one of the deepest questions you can ask yourself, right? Like, why does this work this way? Why is it this way? And then you'll get an answer. And they'll go, but why is that? And if you keep drilling down, you eventually hit your personal core truth, just asking why. So well done to you, David.
Thank you. And so you grew up wanting to know why, and obviously the Catholic Church, you do get a lot of whys. I'm not going to go into the whys and why nots about religion, even though I can go on about it, but that was a good starting basis for you, because obviously religion is a good topic to say, well, why? And there's loads of whys. But as you get older, that passion never went away, I assume.
It never went away, that's for sure. And one of the things I learned is that there's religion and then there's spirituality. And a person's spirituality may have absolutely nothing to do with religion. So I started running into people who were spiritual but not religious. And that is when I found the term mysticism, which mysticism is a very individual, very intimate conversation that a person, a soul has with their own creator, source. I started learning all kinds of other words to define what that was, because I was running into people from all cultures, all walks of life, but they were mystics. And so that's what really helped me with my personal journey, because as much as I love planet Earth, as much as I love the fact that I can get coffee and pie and donuts on this planet, ice cream, these are amazing things. But as much as I love all those things, I knew that there was something missing in my life. I was seeking this missing element. And it took me 25 years. But when I received some people say enlightenment, some people say awakening, whatever you want to call it, when I firmly knew who I was, like I know who I am with a capital K, that when I learned what I am and who I am, then I could truly enjoy everything of Earth in a much higher frequency than I ever could without having that knowledge.
Yeah. And it's like I said, it's the passion and understanding in your own self. And it makes you understand yourself a lot better when you've got that happy medium.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I have more control over myself. I'm not operating and reacting in a normal fashion. That's why some people consider folks who are enlightened a little crazy, because we don't operate in a normal field, or some people call it neurodiversity, I think is a term now. People who don't operate in the normal stream of things actually are being celebrated now, which is a good thing, because we are not going to be able to answer the problems that our planet has with the same thinking that created them, right? I mean, Einstein, I think, is the one that stated that. And so having people that don't think along normal pathways are the perfect problem solvers to put on some of the world's more challenging, issues. Yeah.
And you touched upon neurodiversity. Yes, it is a quick label for everything nowadays, because
right,
because it is the mainstream where, oh, that person's different. They highly functioning. They on the neurodiversity, but they don't call it autism or Asperger's now. They call it ASD. So you have an ASD if you're known to be highly intelligent, if you're highly thinking, if you've got a quick mind, if you overthink things. They call it ASD because they don't want to systematically address it as either autism or Asperger. So, and there's no happy medium in between. It's either one or the other. So,
and humans, we are known for having all shades of gray in between black and white. As human beings on planet Earth, we have all those different shades. So it's delightful.
But my statement on neurodiversity as a world, when you was growing up, when I was growing up, we didn't have that label. They just thought
no, we didn't.
It was a very different, complex thing, and people often misinterpreted that. And just like I said, later years, yes, you got the label stuck on you. You got that, including in today's society. You get labeled that, you get labeled. So, and this is the ultimate why. It's like, why do you have to quickly assume that person's got something like this when it could be, why is they different? The answer is because everyone is unique. But they like to let the label on just to build the statistics, I believe, anyway. Because for every 10 normal people, there out of those 10 people, there's one neurodiverse person. Now, I've interviewed neurodivergent people on my, podcast before, and I've interviewed about 3 or 4 of them. But you can tell each one has their own mindset, but they still sound like me or you. So how can you slap that label and say, oh, that person's got autism, oh, that person's got Asperger's, oh, that person's got ADHD, oh, that person's got bipolar? It doesn't matter. They're still the same person. They don't look any different. They don't have a big tattoo on their head saying, I am this. So you grew older and your passion for life and seeing things and exploring things, that intensified, I would imagine.
Yes, it did. About 2010 is when I knew I needed to make some changes in my life because I was operating as one person for so long. But when I received my awakening, or however you want to define that, when I truly knew who I was at my core, I threw off all those labels. So I was gifted a lot of labels growing up, I'm sure is the same as you. And when you start looking at those labels that you have been walking around with in your subconscious and conscious mind for so long, and you start throwing those off very systematically, like, nope, this is no longer who I am. Nope, I don't accept this as my personal truth anymore. Nope, this is, and I literally set fire to everything that I thought I knew, burned it to the ground, and started rebuilding. And that process took me about 5 years of systematically throwing off labels and rebuilding my life. And by 2015, I knew I was headed in a very different direction for my life. So that was a part of the journey.
And a part of the journey, and you've hit upon it, every journey is not about straightforward up the freeway or motorway. You have to take the diversions to make the perfect life.
For me, I did. I don't know what would be appropriate for a David, for you, but that's what I share with everybody is we have 8 billion people on this planet right now. That means we have 8 billion different realities that are operating at once. And we're in agreement that a staircase is a staircase and a book is a book. And, we're in agreement on certain items in that reality, but the perception of reality and how it affects us, that's where that uniqueness of being a human is all about, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. But we talk about reality. The thing is, reality is going now to the virtual side of things, and that's going to be adding another statistic to this person versus this, because they are in their own world now, and you will be in your own world when you put on these, and I will quote the latest one I've seen, the Apple Vision goggles. You put them on, yes, you spent $3,500 or whatever it is going to be. I think they said 3,000, yeah, something like that. But anyway, you put them on. You still got the outside, but you put those goggles on, you're in the virtual self. You've heard of the film Ready Player One.
Yes.
Every film is every life is going to be like Ready Player One, where you just be at home all the time with the goggles. So, with the life how it is presently, do you feel like it's being stable? Do you feel like you're still addressing certain things in your life?
With the way life is now, I couldn't be happier that I'm the age I am, and I couldn't be happier that I'm on planet Earth right now. To me, it's incredibly exciting. We're at the rebirth. We have AI coming out to the masses. Now, AI has been available since the 90s, okay? It's been around for a long time. However, now it's available to the common person. Like if you have a computer or a phone, you have access to it in ways that were never before possible. And so a lot of the fear that is around that is anytime we have a huge leap. And so one of the people, I was reading an article in CNN, and they were talking about how they were making it equivalent to Oppenheimer and the atomic bomb. You know, we've this explosion of AI and how it's going to take over. And I know, David, you have lived long enough, as I have, that we have that fear factor, and we hear that about every 20 years. Have you noticed about every 20 years, something will come out in technology that's very scary to people because they don't know where it's going. They don't know how it's going to land. They don't know how people are going to incorporate it, because we have this tremendous ability to make a tool super wonderful, like a hammer. We can take it and build houses for people and get people, you know, in safety, or we can use that hammer and beat somebody over the head with it and kill them. You know, we as humans, we take these tools and we can do amazing things, and we can also do highly destructive things. And so I find this time incredibly exciting, because I'm looking at young people who've been trained early on how to use computers in ways that were never designed to be used, watching them use their telephones, running businesses. They've altered the landscape where we now have global visas now, where you can be a virtual nomad, where you're a global nomad. You're allowed to move from country to country because you have a business online. So it doesn't affect the local economy. So you're able to work in a country that 5-10 years ago, that would have been inconceivable, you know? So it's exciting to me to be alive during this time. Are there some things that we need to be a little cautious of? Sure. But I also know that it's also an exciting time when you have this kind of change happening. So that's kind of my perspective on it.
And we talk about AI, you know, we talk about chat GPTs. Now, they're a good resource, but at the same time, people are not utilizing it to the correct way, I believe, because everyone's now using it and I read on a news article the other day, someone got into trouble for using ChatGPT for a speech.
Oh, well, see, this is the thing, right? Remember, you read it on the news, right? That's what you said, right? You read it on the news. Well, that's precisely why it was on the news, because that was an outlier. The thing about news and news media is they're going to take the outlier of a population. So if you have a beautiful bell curve, because you brought up statistics, so let's talk statistics. You know, if you have a bell curve of normal population growth or whatever is happening, you always have those data points that are on the outliers. And the news media latches on to those people that are doing extremely bad things, or people who get into trouble. They usually harbor on the negative, what we would label as the negative side of life, you know, the way people are misbehaving, the way they're misusing, blah, blah, blah. That's what makes news. So then we're given this perspective that lots of people are doing it when they only talked about one guy, you know, or one person out of 8 billion people. It gives us a skewed version of what reality is actually happening, because here I am, a college professor, and I'm thrilled that ChatGPT is there. I actually educate my students on how to set up an essay with ChatGPT, and I show them how it sets it up according to a model that no longer exists, like in academic world. And it's a lot of fun to have them run with it. And I'm like, do you see why professors can tell that you didn't write this, that ChatGPT did? Because it will use a format that we are very familiar with, because it no longer exists. So it's all perspective.
And I know most places do not, you know, like in common, you know, high schools and all, they do ban it from the actual thing, so you can't use it. So you have to still use your own imagination.
Yes. And I always find that funny, because remember, and I'm sure you do, remember when Wikipedia came out and everybody was all upset because anybody could edit the entries. And so what I shared with my students is I wanted them to use Wikipedia, and they're like, oh my gosh, you're the only professor that will do that. And I said, of course, because don't make that your only resource. You need 3. So use Wikipedia, Encyclopedia Britannica, you know, Merriam-Webster, you know, I'm like, you need to use multiple sources. Get into the habit of using Wikipedia, because at the time, physics was exploding. It was 2005. And I remember it was the year they were celebrating 100 years of Einstein and his work. And so it was a wonderful time. And you actually had physicists filling out pages on Wikipedia from the data that they were receiving during that period of time, some of their papers and everything. And I'm like, the lead scientists were writing articles on Wikipedia during that time. And so, like any tool, you have garbage, and then you also have those nuggets of gold that you wouldn't have had without the advent of that technology. So, yeah, you get to pick and choose, don't you?
Yeah, and Wikipedia, you still can edit on there, but there's more awareness of people editing falsely, so they will stop you as soon as you process it. Like a couple of minutes later, your edit has been reverted back to, and you're thinking, even though I gave, even if you give a source, they still edit it back to the previous source because they believe that's the best source.
Correct.
So you've got to have the solid evidence behind you to say, okay. It's like I did a edit on a Wikipedia page for when I was back in England. A new train came out. Now I was part of that launch when it came into the area I lived. I wrote the article, I shared my own image. It stayed there, but you look at it closely, it's been edited around so much because obviously new people added to it. So it's gone from the article I made it to the way it is now, and it's expanded. Now that's a good thing, but you look closely at the edits because if you're a contributor, you can see who's edited and it's like, why?
And we're back to that question.
Yeah. And you think, I was on that, and why is it like that? And you have to then debunk it in your mind, well, they probably had a different experience, but it doesn't justify for the Wikipedia because it gives the either positive, negative. You've got to then look at the neutral. So when I contribute now to articles, I have to look at, okay, I can't be this, I can't be that, I've got to be middle ground. Middle ground normally stays in the neutral where no one edits. So into the future and how things are developing, obviously, do you see things progressing better, stronger, more inspirational people coming forward to say, yes, I can, yes, I believe this? Do you believe people be like how you believe?
I don't know on what other people will believe like I do, but I see a lot more willingness to allow people to experiment with lifestyle than what I saw in the 70s and 80s. In the 70s or 80s, you had to fight for the right to be who you were, right? You had to fight to stand in your individuality. But then there are certain cultures on our planet where that's not a good thing. For their culture, solidarity is needed. Conformity is required if their society is going to continue to operate the way they need to. So I have a very skewed view of life because I was raised in many different countries growing up. My father was in the military, and so we traveled around quite a bit. But I also am highly aware that my worldview is skewed terribly because I spent most of my time in America, in the United States. And so being an English speaking woman in the United States, there are certain aspects of my lifestyle that's inconceivable to somebody on the other side of the planet, such as I'm a single woman, but yet I have the ability to buy property in the United States. I'm able to buy a home. I'm able to work outside of my home if I wish. And so there are a lot of privileges that I have that, like I said, are inconceivable to someone in another culture who's a woman and married. They're, the lifestyle I have. So I wanted to point that out. I'm aware of the diversity of our world. We have many different types. But as far as humanity as a whole, if you look at some of the statistics that are being run, believe it or not, despite what the news says, there's a lot less violence in our world than there was last century. There is still intolerable things happening. And I think good people need to step up and do what they feel is appropriate for making things as peaceful as they can in their world, in their locus of control. But for the most part, we are evolving to be a better, I think, species on the planet. We're taking responsibility for our actions. We're taking responsibility for what's happening. Now, for everything I say, I know that there are thousands of people that will point at all the horrors that are happening and all the horrible things that are going on. And I'm not saying that those don't exist, but what I am saying is when we focus on good people and good things that they're doing, we allow the spotlight to shift onto the positive. And when you start focusing on the positive, you give ideas and suggestions to other people who thought they were disempowered, and you give them inspiration on, oh, well, if they're doing that in that area of the world, we need to shift this a little bit, but we could do this in our area of the world. And one of the things I'd like to talk about is the organic gardening movement that started really early in the 60s, but really didn't take fire until the internet came out. And then you have people up in Finland that are showing you how to make a window garden using 2-liter plastic bottles and floodlights because they're in darkness, so many months out of the year. But they have learned how to build organic gardenings using drip systems and all this. This is the type of thing, they call them window farms. And these are the type of things that have started taking off because we as a collective humanity are learning from each other across cultures and across the oceans. It's a delight to see.
It is. Now, obviously, people can get in contact with you and talk about this further. How is the best way for people to get in contact with you to discuss their views and give their takes and to talk to you?
If you want to talk to me, the best way is to go to my website, the8gates.com. And it's THE, and then the number 8, and then Gates, GATES.com. So the8gates.com, and you'll see the menu button. Click on that and go to Open Friday Coffee. And I open the Zoom room for an hour. And that's where you can meet with me and chat with me and let me know that, hey, I got to chat with you on David Hackett's, I heard you on David Hackett's podcast. And I'll be like, isn't he a dear? Isn't he wonderful what he's doing with people? And we will talk about you, David, on the Open Friday Coffee. And then ask me whatever question, and I'll be glad to guide you on either an online course I have, a book, or refer you to another professor who would be better, for whatever your life journey happens to be.
Okay, ultimately, and this is the end question, what inspiration would you want to say to people to help them develop on their journey?
Don't forget your dreams. I know that that's really campy, but seriously, if you have a dream and you have no idea how to get there, my inspiration to you is ask for help. There are people who have solved the issue that you're challenged by. Figure it out. Go on YouTube. YouTube is the second largest used search engine on the internet. Google's number 1. YouTube is number 2. And go look it up. But my inspiration to you is just because you're challenged by something, know that of the 8 billion people on this planet, somebody has solved it. Go figure out who solved it. And they may not have solved it the way you need it solved, but they will get you started on the next step for you. So that's my recommendation.
It's been a pleasure talking to you about your journey. Let's hope, even though Google and YouTube are the same type of, but I always say one's the visual, one's the word. So that's how I always remember. But I thank you for sharing your journey. Like I said, I know you as one of my earlier planned in the year guests, so it's been a long time waiting, but it's been a worthwhile wait. Well, thank you for sharing.
And thank you for inviting me so many months ago, and it's wonderful that we finally made this happen.
Thank you, Ginny. After the interview, I am pleased to say I had a surprise package from Janine. Janine, when you listen back at this, I'd like to say thank you for the card and thank you for the sweet surprise that you gave me. It was much appreciated. And again, thank you for sharing your journey.
was The Journey, hosted by Wise Words Imaging, hosted by David Hackett. Be sure to like, subscribe, and listen to another journey coming soon.